Hello, perceptive Scorpio. Have you ever noticed how certain encounters stay with you long after the conversation has ended, as though something beneath the surface is still quietly unfolding? As July 14 and 15 arrive, your chart points toward a brief but meaningful window of heightened awareness. Rather than announcing itself through dramatic events, this energy may reveal itself through subtle shifts in how you understand connection, emotional honesty, and the quiet influence you have on the people around you. Sometimes another person's life begins changing long before either of you realizes why. You may cross paths with someone who appears composed, capable, and completely in control. Yet beneath that calm exterior, there are questions they have spent years avoiding. What draws their attention isn't your appearance or anything you try to prove. It's the steady way you carry yourself, the emotional clarity you protect, and the sense that you are comfortable standing in your own truth without asking for permission. For Scorpio, this kind of presence often works like still water beneath moonlight. It doesn't force anyone to look deeper, yet those willing to pause may suddenly notice reflections they can no longer ignore. The more authentic you remain, the more difficult it becomes for someone else to hide behind carefully built defenses. That experience can feel unsettling for them, not because you've done anything extraordinary, but because your presence quietly invites a level of honesty they may not have allowed themselves before. What if you've already experienced something like this? Have you ever met someone who seemed certain of everything, only to watch their confidence soften the longer they were around you? Has anyone ever told you that your calmness made them rethink parts of themselves they had never questioned before? If those moments feel familiar, you may already recognize the emotional current beginning to move. If not, these next couple of days may offer the first gentle signs. Thank you for spending this time in thoughtful reflection. Choosing to explore these symbolic messages with an open mind creates space for deeper self-awareness, and that willingness matters more than you may realize. This reflection isn't simply about whether someone feels drawn toward you. It's about recognizing how authenticity can become a turning point in another person's journey, while reminding you to remain grounded in your own. If these words resonate with something you've been sensing beneath the surface, take a moment to check in with yourself. Leave a comment and write, Asterisk, I am ready to receive what is meant for me. Asked. Not as a way of waiting for life to happen, but as a quiet acknowledgement that you're willing to meet whatever unfolds with openness, self-trust, and honesty. From here, we'll continue exploring what these subtle shifts may be revealing. There are moments when the emotional atmosphere becomes almost impossible to explain, Scorpio. July 14 and 15 may feel like one of those moments when life appears ordinary on the surface, while something much quieter begins rearranging itself underneath. You may not notice dramatic changes right away, but you could sense a growing awareness that certain conversations, encounters, or lingering thoughts carry more meaning than they first appeared to hold. Astrologically, this brief window invites you to pay closer attention to what cannot easily be measured. Rather than pushing for answers, the symbolism of this period encourages observation. It's the kind of energy that softens the boundary between instinct and reason, allowing feelings you've quietly carried to rise into clearer focus. At the same time, someone connected to your life may also be experiencing an emotional shift they struggle to explain, sensing something in your presence that unsettles familiar patterns while drawing them in with quiet curiosity. For Scorpio, these 2 days are less about dramatic turning points and more about emotional timing. Certain planetary themes suggest a gentle tension between vulnerability and self-protection, between opening the heart and maintaining control. Neither side is entirely right or wrong. Instead, this inner contrast creates an opportunity to recognize where old defenses have outlived their purpose and where genuine connection asks for something more honest. Because of that, don't be surprised if someone who usually appears composed begins revealing unexpected moments of uncertainty. This isn't necessarily because you try to influence them or change their perspective. Sometimes authenticity has its strongest impact without saying very much at all. Like still water reflecting a moonlit sky, your presence can quietly reveal emotions another person has spent years avoiding. What they're responding to isn't perfection, it's the sense that you aren't performing a version of yourself to gain approval. You carry an emotional steadiness that can't be manufactured. And for someone accustomed to relying on achievement, image, or certainty, that kind of quiet confidence can feel both comforting and deeply unsettling. It invites questions they may have learned to silence rather than explore. From a symbolic perspective, this is the kind of period that asks us to consider how transformation actually begins. It rarely arrives through force or dramatic declarations. More often, it begins with an uncomfortable realization that something once considered solid no longer feels entirely true. While that process may create temporary uncertainty, it also opens the possibility for a more genuine way of relating to others and to oneself. If we view this through the language of tarot, the symbolism points towards someone who has become highly skilled at managing the external parts of life while neglecting quieter emotional needs beneath the surface. Alongside that, another archetype reminds us that lasting balance isn't created through control alone, but through honesty, accountability, and the willingness to see ourselves clearly. Together, these symbols suggest that meaningful relationships often become mirrors, not because they flatter us, but because they reveal what has quietly been waiting to be acknowledged. You may sense that your role in this process is smaller than you imagine and more significant than you realize. Simply remaining grounded in your own values can encourage another person to question assumptions they once believed were unshakable. That's why this energy can feel unexpectedly intense, even when nothing outwardly dramatic seems to be happening. The deeper movement is taking place beneath appearances, where lasting change almost always begins. So if you recently felt an unusual stillness, a heightened awareness, or the impression that someone understands you without many words, don't rush to explain it away. Personal growth often begins as a subtle shift before it becomes an obvious turning point. Continue honoring your boundaries, your emotional honesty, and your own pace. Those qualities may become the quiet current that helps both you and someone else move toward a more authentic understanding of what connection can truly be. This is where the deeper meaning of these days begins to reveal itself, Scorpio. The person entering your awareness isn't necessarily searching for love in the way it's often portrayed. Instead, they may be approaching a moment in their own life when outward success or carefully maintained certainty no longer answers the questions quietly rising within them. Without realizing it, they're drawn towards someone whose presence reflects something they haven't been able to find on their own. What captures their attention isn't something you perform. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are without needing constant validation. You move through the world with an emotional honesty that can't be bought, rehearsed, or imitated. And for someone who has spent years relying on control, that kind of authenticity can feel both comforting and deeply unsettling. It shines light into places they have learned to keep hidden, not through judgment, but simply by existing. It's easy to romanticize encounters like this and immediately label them as destiny or soulmates. Yet the symbolism suggests something more nuanced. This connection may represent a crossroads rather than a reward, inviting another person to decide whether they're willing to move beyond familiar emotional habits. Growth becomes possible only when someone is prepared to release the version of themselves built on appearances and begin meeting others with genuine openness. For someone accustomed to relationships shaped by expectation, achievement, or quiet transactions, your way of connecting feels unfamiliar. You aren't offering affection in exchange for approval, and you don't measure your worth by how much someone wants you. Your boundaries aren't barriers, they're expressions of self-respect. That distinction may challenge someone who has rarely experienced love without conditions or hidden negotiations. The tension they feel isn't really about you, it's about what your presence awakens inside them. When people spend years protecting themselves from vulnerability, honesty can feel surprisingly intimidating. Your authenticity gently asks them a question they may never have considered before. Who are you when there's nothing left to prove? That's the threshold standing before them, and only they can choose whether to cross it. If you've ever noticed that people seem unusually guarded around you before eventually opening up, or if you've been told that your presence feels intense without understanding why, this may offer another perspective. Sometimes emotional sincerity invites others to face parts of themselves they've kept carefully hidden. Not everyone welcomes that experience immediately, but it doesn't mean you should become smaller to make others more comfortable. Think of yourself as still water, rather than a passing storm. Still water doesn't force reflection, yet anyone willing to look closely eventually sees what has always been there. Continue honoring your own truth, instead of adjusting it to fit someone else's expectations. The people capable of meeting you with equal honesty won't be discouraged by your authenticity. They'll recognize it as an invitation to grow alongside you. If this speaks to something you've experienced, I'd love to hear your perspective. Have you ever noticed someone becoming unexpectedly quiet or reflective simply because you remain true to yourself? Share your thoughts below and let this be a place where genuine experiences are welcomed without judgment. As these days unfold, pay attention to the quieter forms of guidance that often go unnoticed. A meaningful dream that stays with you after sunrise, a recurring symbol that catches your attention, or a feeling that gently returns when everything else grows still may be worth reflecting on. Whether or not they hold a larger meaning, moments like these often encourage us to slow down, listen more carefully, and reconnect with the wisdom that's already beginning to surface from within. Over these 2 days, you may notice that certain patterns begin asking for your attention in quiet, persistent ways. Perhaps a familiar number appears more than once, a meaningful dream lingers after you wake, or a chance encounter stays with you longer than expected. Whether these moments hold symbolic meaning or simply encourage deeper awareness, they invite you to slow down long enough to notice what your busy mind might otherwise overlook. Some people see recurring numbers as reminders to pause rather than predictions of what comes next. For Scorpio, the symbolism of *, 8 *, may feel especially meaningful during this period, representing resilience, renewal, and the quiet strength that comes from embracing change instead of resisting it. You may also find yourself reflecting on the symbolism of *13s, not as an ending to fear, but as an image of transformation proof that releasing an old version of yourself can create space for something far more authentic to emerge. The tarot reflects a similar theme. The High Priestess reminds us that not every answer arrives through logic or immediate evidence. Sometimes your deepest understanding develops in silence, when you stop searching for reassurance outside yourself and begin listening to the quiet voice that's been present all along. During these days, your intuition may recognize something meaningful before your mind has the words to explain it. When that inner wisdom is viewed alongside the symbolism of the reversed tower, the message becomes less about disruption and more about conscious change. Emotional structures that no longer support your growth may begin to loosen, but that doesn't mean everything must fall apart. In many cases, transformation feels gentler than expected when we meet it with curiosity instead of fear. What first appears uncertain can gradually become the foundation for a more honest and stable future. You may also notice small moments that seem unusually significant. A message arrives just as you've decided to stop waiting. Someone's name unexpectedly returns to your thoughts. A brief conversation leaves a lasting impression for reasons you can't fully explain. Rather than rushing to assign meaning, allow yourself to become curious. Sometimes life repeats a symbol simply because you're finally ready to see it from a different perspective. That doesn't mean every coincidence carries a hidden message, but it does remind us that attention is a powerful form of awareness. If an idea, memory, or feeling continues returning with unusual clarity, it may be worth exploring instead of dismissing. Growth often begins by noticing what we've been overlooking, rather than by searching for something entirely new. As you move through work, family responsibilities, and the ordinary pace of everyday life, try giving yourself a few uninterrupted minutes of stillness. You don't need elaborate rituals or perfect conditions. A quiet journal, a deep breath, or a few moments of reflection beside a bowl of water may be enough to reconnect with your own inner compass. When the noise settles, your next step often becomes clearer without needing to be forced. Above all, remember that genuine connection isn't something you earn by becoming more impressive. It develops when you become more fully yourself. There comes a point in every emotional journey when the question is no longer, how do I make someone choose me? But instead, am I honoring the version of myself that deserves an honest connection? These days, invite you to stand in that quieter understanding. You aren't here to become someone's ideal or to reshape yourself so another person feels comfortable. You're here to meet relationships where integrity, mutual respect, and emotional maturity already exist, or where both people are willing to grow toward them together. Not everyone will be ready for that kind of connection, and that's perfectly all right. The people who truly belong in your life won't ask you to abandon your authenticity in order to be loved. Instead, they'll recognize it as the very reason a meaningful connection becomes possible. For someone accustomed to measuring love through control, certainty, or performance, meeting someone who values honesty above appearances can feel both inspiring and deeply challenging. Without saying a word, you remind them that real closeness isn't built through possession or persuasion. It begins when two people are willing to meet each other without masks, without hidden agendas, and without asking either person to become less than who they truly are. While that may sound beautiful in theory, living it asks for something many people find far more difficult than falling in love. It asks for the courage to look honestly at yourself. Before someone can build a healthy connection with you, they often have to recognize the habits that have prevented them from creating one with anyone else. That process belongs to them, not to you, Scorpio. This is where your boundaries become something far more meaningful than simple limits. They aren't walls designed to keep people out. They're thoughtful thresholds that invite others to enter only with honesty, respect, and emotional responsibility. Choosing not to accept inconsistent affection or emotional uncertainty isn't being difficult. It's making room for a relationship that can actually flourish. That kind of strength often looks quiet from the outside. It means resisting the urge to explain your value to someone who isn't ready to recognize it. It means allowing your standards to remain steady, even when someone's interest feels flattering. Your worth doesn't become greater because another person finally sees it. It has always existed, whether anyone acknowledged it or not. One of the most liberating realizations along this journey is that meaningful relationships don't have to be chased into existence. When two people are emotionally prepared to meet one another, they naturally move toward greater honesty rather than greater control. Someone who genuinely respects you won't feel threatened by your independence, your sensitivity, or your clarity. Instead, those qualities become part of what inspires them to grow. Of course, not everyone will be ready for that invitation. Some people may respond by trying to create confusion, gain control, or reshape you into someone who feels easier to understand. When that happens, your responsibility isn't to convince them or carry the weight of their healing. Sometimes the kindest response is to step back with compassion and allow life to teach the lessons that your explanations never could. Imagine yourself as the entrance to a quiet garden rather than a locked gate. Some people may hesitate because they aren't yet ready for what honesty requires. Others may try to force their way in without understanding the care genuine connection deserves. The people who truly belong in your life will arrive differently. They'll approach with humility, curiosity, and a willingness to leave old defenses behind before asking to share your world. That's where authentic love begins. It doesn't ask you to abandon yourself in exchange for acceptance. It invites you to become even more fully who you already are. If someone's attention consistently leaves you feeling anxious, diminished, or uncertain about your own value, pause before assuming you found the right person. Sometimes those moments reveal an old emotional pattern, asking to be understood rather than a future waiting to unfold. So don't mistake softness for weakness or honesty for something that needs to be hidden. Your ability to remain genuine carries more quiet influence than you may realize. You're not here to become whoever someone else expects you to be. You're here to live with enough integrity that the people who enter your life are encouraged to meet you with the same sincerity. As these reflections settle in, another doorway begins to appear, one that leads inward rather than outward. The question is no longer whether love is somewhere ahead of you. Instead, it becomes whether you created enough space within yourself to receive the kind of connection you've been hoping for. That shift in perspective changes everything because it places your attention where your greatest influence has always existed. Simple reflective practices can help support that process, not because the universe requires rituals, but because moments of intentional stillness help you hear your own voice more clearly. A few quiet minutes with a journal, A dark blue notebook resting beside a bowl of water or the soft glow of a single candle can become gentle reminders to return to yourself. The objects aren't the source of change. They simply create an atmosphere where clarity has room to emerge. You might write a simple affirmation such as, I choose relationships that honor who I truly am, I trust myself to recognize what is healthy and genuine. The value isn't in repeating perfect words. It's in allowing your actions to reflect the beliefs you're choosing to strengthen. Each time you write them, you reinforce a relationship with yourself before seeking one with anyone else. Then give yourself a few moments of complete stillness. Let your breathing settle. Notice what thoughts begin to soften when you're no longer trying to solve every unanswered question. Like moonlight resting on deep water, clarity often appears gradually rather than all at once. Those quiet minutes are rarely empty. They create space for insight that constant activity often drowns out. People often ask when love will finally arrive. A more meaningful question might be, who am I becoming while I wait? The answer shapes every relationship that follows. When you begin living from the belief that your worth is already secure, your energy shifts from seeking constant reassurance to recognizing what genuinely aligns with your values. I once heard from someone who spent 3 weeks beginning each morning with a few minutes of quiet reflection and journaling. She wasn't trying to change another person's mind. She was learning to reconnect with her own. By the end of those weeks, the greatest transformation wasn't the return of an old relationship. It was the confidence she had rediscovered within herself. Everything that followed grew from that foundation. That's the deeper purpose of this practice. It's never about forcing outcomes or proving that you're worthy of being loved. It's about bringing your thoughts, choices, and daily habits into harmony with the version of yourself that already understands your value. Whether a particular relationship changes or not, that inner alignment becomes something no external circumstance can easily take away. If this reflection resonates with you, consider setting aside a few quiet minutes tonight simply for yourself. Not to chase a result, but to reconnect with your own center. And if that intention feels meaningful, leave a comment and write yes, asked. Let it be a small acknowledgement that you're choosing self-awareness, emotional honesty, and openness to whatever healthy connections may grow from that place. If you've stayed with this reflection to this point, thank you for listening with such care. This has never been only about predicting relationships. It's been about remembering your own strength, your capacity for growth, and your ability to shape your future through the choices you make each day. You aren't waiting for someone else to define your story. You're becoming the person who lives it with intention. You don't need to hide your sensitivity to be respected or pretend to be stronger than you feel. Real connection welcomes both resilience and vulnerability. Continue honoring your boundaries, trusting your instincts, and allowing your life to reflect the values that matter most to you. The people capable of meeting you there won't need convincing. They'll recognize the honesty you've been carrying all along. If these days leave you feeling emotionally drained, remember that caring for yourself is part of the journey as well. Give your body the same patience and kindness you offer others. Rest when you need to. Nourish yourself well. Spend time outdoors if possible, and support your health in practical ways. And if you've been reconsidering your direction in work or finances, allow curiosity, not fear, to guide the next small step. Sometimes meaningful change begins with a single decision to explore a path you hadn't previously allowed yourself to imagine. You may discover that even a small creative risk or a path centered on healing begins opening doors you hadn't previously considered. For Scorpio, growth often begins beneath the surface before it becomes visible to anyone else. Your greatest strengths aren't found in appearances but in your resilience, emotional insight, determination, and willingness to transform through experience. When your choices reflect those qualities, progress tends to unfold in ways that feel deeply authentic rather than forced. When it comes to relationships, remember that genuine connection doesn't need to be pursued through exhaustion or uncertainty. What is healthy develops through mutual respect, emotional honesty, and shared willingness to grow. Let your decisions be guided by truth instead of urgency, and by self-trust, instead of the fear of missing an opportunity that was never truly meant for you. If you'd like to surround yourself with symbolic reminders during these days, consider colors that reflect the emotional atmosphere of this reading. Asterisk. Deep burgundy, asterisk, can represent resilience, courage, and the willingness to embrace transformation. Midnight indigos invites quiet reflection and intuitive awareness, while asterisk slate blue can serve as a reminder to remain calm as deeper understanding gradually unfolds. These colors aren't guarantees of change. They're simply gentle symbols of the qualities you're already learning to embody. Life has a way of testing our patience, especially when meaningful progress happens more slowly than we'd hoped. It's easy to question whether anything is changing when visible results haven't appeared yet. Yet some of the most lasting transformations develop quietly, much like roots strengthening beneath the ground long before new growth reaches the light. Continue showing up for yourself, even when the path ahead isn't fully visible. The effort you're investing in your own emotional well-being is never wasted. Even if your growth isn't immediately recognized by others, that doesn't diminish its value. The relationships, opportunities, and experiences that truly align with who you're becoming often arrive gradually, meeting you as you continue becoming more fully yourself. Trust that authenticity creates its own momentum over time. Before we finish, I want to sincerely thank you for sharing these moments of reflection. Your willingness to pause, listen, and explore these symbolic ideas with an open mind brings depth and meaning to conversations like this. Every thoughtful comment, every shared perspective, and every act of encouragement helps create a welcoming space where people can reflect, grow, and learn from one another. If something in today's reflection spoke to you, leave a comment below and write, asterisk, I am ready to walk into my truth. Ask. Let those words be a quiet promise to yourself, a reminder that growth begins with the choices you make each day. If you found this reading meaningful, I'd also appreciate it if you shared it with someone who may need these reflections and subscribe to continue exploring future readings together. Scorpio, your journey doesn't have to unfold all at once to be meaningful. Every moment of self-awareness, every healthy boundary, and every choice rooted in honesty becomes part of a larger transformation that's already taking shape. Keep moving forward with patience, clarity, and quiet confidence. I look forward to sharing the next reflection with you.